Hey, welcome to today's talk, and we are starting a brand new series. It's called Defining Moments. And like yourself, I've had some defining moments in my life. I remember one of them when I was just a kid, and I started elementary school. And I didn't realize, everybody, that you had to go back every single day. I mean, it was okay for a day or two, but I remember the thought of getting up and going to school every day. And I looked at my mother walking to school, and I said, Mom, with tears in my eyes, do I have to go every day? And she said, son, if you don't go to school, I'm going to go to prison. I said, I'll go to prison with you. It was a defining moment in my life. A defining moment still was the day that I got married 27 years ago. I remember it well. I still remember the birth of my 4 children, not all at once, at separate times. Especially a defining moment was my 4th child, and he was born, and he weighed, listen to this, everybody, 10 pound 7. Yeah, that was a defining moment for my wife. We said at that moment, 4 no more. We did our bit. And yet we've been joined together in some global defining moments. I can still remember the day when I watched the news early in the morning and I heard that Princess Diana had died in a road traffic accident the night before in Paris. We all remember where we were at 9/11. I was in England and had to fly back the next day. And then I have other moments in my childhood where I remember they were defining moments, especially the moment when I heard that my father had been shot as a police officer. Everybody, we're living in a defining moment right now. And this is what I believe. The defining moment of our generation will be, how did we allow our faith to impact the strangest time ever? And everybody, this is a strange time. We're all socially distancing. I saw this the other day, and if the Beatles had to record their Abbey Road album today, it would look like this. Yeah, look at them. All socially distancing there. And even the Olympics in Tokyo, the rings, they're having to socially distance. Yes, my friend, this is what we're doing. We're socially distanced, and we're missing our travel at this time. We always like that little flight, getting away somewhere. And I think at the moment we're reinventing new airports for our daily rhythm. Yes, when we get up in the morning, we take a little flight to a new airport, BTH, everyone. It's called Bathroom. And then we jet over from there to, OFC. We head over to the office after that. Towards the end of the day, we head to DNR, to the dining room. But a lot of us are taking a bad flight to a congested airport, and it's called the WNC, the wine cellar. Can I say, everybody, do not go to that airport every single day. You should not be living in that place. And then finally, we go to the MBR. We head to the master bedroom at the end of the day. These are strange times, and that's what I want to talk about in this series, Defining Moments. I want to talk about this really important thing. A defining moment is a strong faith for strange times, and we're going to talk about a guy called Abraham. And he was from the Old Testament, but the writer of the book of Hebrews talks about him in the New Testament. And we're going to read here from Hebrews chapter 11, verses 8 to 10. And I believe that you're going to see something from a guy that lived thousands of years ago, thousands of miles away, but that is really applicable for us because he displayed a strong faith in strange times. So let's read it together, verse 8 of chapter 11 of the book of Hebrews. It says, by faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place, he would later, and we don't like that word later, I like the word now, but later, receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. By faith, he made his home in the promised land like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, his son and grandson, who were heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to a city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. He was looking for a place called heaven. How can this help us today? The first thing I want to talk about is simply this. In strange times, a strong faith embraces uncertainty. In strange times, a strong faith embraces uncertainty. Let's look at that verse 8 again. It says, by faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, and here's the key bit here, everybody, obeyed and went even though he did not know where he was going. How hilarious is that? I don't want to head out on a journey where I don't know where I'm actually going. Normally what I do is that I get out my iPhone, I get on my Apple Maps, maybe you get on your Google Maps, and I want to put in a destination. I want to know exactly where I'm going to. And the only thing that God gave to Abraham was obey. That's not much of a destination, everybody. And I think that often what I'm looking for in the will of God, I'm wanting to put into God maps, I'm wanting to put in safety, I'm wanting to put in security, I'm wanting to put in predictability, but truth is that when you type those in to the God maps of your life, it comes up no suggestions found. But every time you write in God's will, or you write in obey, or you write in submit, immediately the directions come towards you. Here's a big principle with God. Are you ready for this? A big principle with God? Going is more important than knowing. Did you get that? Going with God is more important than knowing. I remember reading this verse 25 years ago. Let me tell you where I was. I was down in the south of France. And how many people would love to go to the south of France right now? I know that I would love to. I was in the city of Perpignan. My wife is French, and we were down there vacationing with our in-laws. But I had a burden on my heart. Even though I should have been enjoying the south of France, everybody, guess what I was doing? I was praying about my future. I was praying about my future because I wanted to plant a church in Ireland. And I was saying, God, would you speak to me? And guess where he spoke to me through? This very verse, everybody. The aspect that this was that Abraham was saying, you know what? I don't know everything. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm ready, Lord, to take a step with you. And I remember reading this verse and saying, God, I'm ready to take the step. And the step was to go to the city of Derry to plant a church. And it was a city that had been decimated by what was known as the Troubles, the conflict in Ireland between Catholics and Protestants. One of the buildings that we eventually used, listen to this, had been bombed 25 times in 23 years. It was a chaotic place. But I remember when we made the decision that we're going to move back to Ireland, Isabel, my wife, was pregnant with our first child. We didn't have enough financial support, and quite literally, everybody, we did not know a single soul in that city. But this is the next big principle. Are you ready for this here? The big principle with God? Knowing is often found in the going. Because as we went to that city, little did we know that God would provide the finances and that he had a group of spectacular people waiting for us who were praying for a brand new pastor. God was so good. So I want to encourage you with this. In this strange time, in incredible uncertainty, is that go with God sometimes into the unknowing, and through the going, you end up knowing in life. You see, going is sometimes, it involves geographical uncertainty. And it means moving to a different place. And you normally have a choice in that, just like what I described when we moved back to Ireland. But there's another type of going, and it happens more often, and I call it this one, transitional uncertainty. Transitional uncertainty. And it's moving not to a different place, it's moving to a different season in life. You're heading out into a different season, and you don't have a choice in this one. And it's like if you are a middle schooler, you don't have a choice to stunt your growth. I can remember being 12 years old and living in Ireland, and one day walking walking out into my backyard, looking up at the sky. It was blue. There's one day a year. It's called summer, everybody, in Ireland, where it's sunny. And I remember looking at the sky and thinking, I could be 12 forever. Well, that only lasted for 1 year because life moves on. And you might be a middle schooler going, I love this. But guess what? You're going to have to go through the change, and you're going to have to become a high schooler. It's one of those transitional changes, and there's always uncertainty in it. From high school to college, you don't know what's going to be over there. From college to true singleness in life, maybe sharing an apartment with other people. From there to marriage, how many people knew what was happening when you got involved in marriage? You didn't know a thing. And then you made the crazy decision to say, we're going to have children. How crazy is that? Do you notice that parents, they say this, we should have a baby. They never say we should have a teenager. That's quite interesting. And you don't understand in the next season, from having a little baby through to a toddler, through to a preschool, it's all very different. But here's the good news that I have found and that Abraham teaches us is that God is always in the next season. And as I go with God, I start to know and get the revelation that he is there. And this is what Abraham understood. And this is what he knew. He knew who God was, that God is a father and he cares for us. And whatever thing you're going through, and right now at the moment, the whole uncertainty is Corona. But even when we get through Corona, we're going to have to transition the seasons of life with all of its uncertainty. God is there as a father, and the next thing that Abraham knew is that God is faithful. And the writer of the Hebrews says this 2 chapters later. He says the words of Jesus, never will I leave you and never will I forsake you. So in strange times, a strong faith, it actually embraces uncertainty. It runs into it knowing that God is out there. The second thing is this. In strange times, a strong faith models perseverance. This is really important. It models perseverance. Let's look at verse 9 again. It says, by faith, he, Abraham, made his home in the promised land like a stranger in a foreign country. How many people feel like you're in a foreign country right now and you're stuck in your home, but it all seems so foreign and it seems so alien? He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob. Remember we said it earlier on, his son and his grandson, who were heirs with him of the same promise. It's at this point that we start to understand the significance of this guy, Abraham, who was not only the father of the Jewish nation, Israel, he is the father of every Christian because he's known through the scriptures as being the father of faith, the first person that really responded to God and said, I don't know everything, but I know you're good and I'm going to trust you. And God, it says in Romans, credited that to him as righteousness. He didn't do anything but just believe God in the uncertainty. But he had to do this, everybody. He was moving into an incredible blessing, but he had to persevere in doing that. I read this just 2 days ago. Perseverance. The river cuts rock not because of its power, but because of its persistence. Did you hear that? The river cuts the rock not because of its power, but because of its persistence. And I think this is a moment for our generation that we would remain persistent and persevere. You probably saw the new bumper sticker. This is hilarious, everybody. Your grandparents were called to war. You are being told to sit and watch Netflix all day. You can do this, everybody. God is asking us in this moment to persevere. And I think this, the attitude I adopt, the decisions I make, and the compassion I show in this season will impact generations to come. You see, Abraham, he understood this, that God had given him a promise, and there was a ton of uncertainty with it, but he knew this, it's not only about me, it's about my son Isaac, it's about my grandson Jacob. Jacob would go on to have 12 sons, and they would form the nation of Israel. One of those sons was a guy called Judah, and from the tribe of Judah, eventually a person called Jesus would come and salvation would come to the world. Abraham understood this. I need to persevere in the strangest times with a strong faith because it's not about me. And let's be really clear on this. In this season, let's not make this about us and our own comfort and our own preferences. Everybody, we're in a season where we need to model perseverance. We need to model perseverance. Perseverance in different areas. Let me speak to the singles, a defining moment to model perseverance in your singleness. See, what happens in this COVID season is that we shift to comparison in our lives. And everyone wants everyone else's quarantine life. Isn't that true? Everybody wants everyone else's quarantine life because we are spending so much time on social media. Our thumbs starting to get cramped because we're taking so much time scrolling. And we're looking at everybody else. And the single people are looking at the married people. The single people are looking at the married people and they're thinking to themselves, you know what? I would love a family right now. And that's a real felt need. But then the married people are looking at the single people, and you know what they're doing? They're going, I wish I was single right now because there's 4 hobbies that I would love to take up. And what we're doing is you're preferring my quarantine life, and I'm wanting your quarantine life. Guess what I've got right now? I've got the life that I've got. And single people, I want to encourage you with this. You are not alone. And in the church, you still have a family. Keep reaching out. And for all the married people, they've got kids and a family, you've got a bigger family than just your immediate family. You've got a wider family that includes the single people. Let's draw close. And again, single people, I want to encourage you with this one here. Don't feel guilty that you have some extra time on your hands, maybe compared to other people. Just use it wisely at this time. Use it wisely. I think also it's a defining moment to model perseverance in our marriages, to model perseverance in our marriage. My mom and dad, at the end of March, they celebrated their 56th wedding anniversary. 56 years together. That's pretty incredible. When we start out a marriage, you know what? It's all about romance. What gets you through to 56 years? It's about being resolute. It's one thing to have romance, keep the romance alive, but you got to have something more than that. You got to be resolute. And when I think of my parents and what they were through, my father was in the Marines when they first got married. One time, he was overseas for over a year shortly after my parents got married. They had to get through that time and through that separation. And then he came back to Ireland, and I said it earlier on, he ended up joining the police force. It was a time of conflict. They got through all of that. When he left the police force, he planted a church. They never took it easy, these people. When he was planting a church, he found out that he got cancer. Shortly after that, my mom, she was diagnosed with cancer. And right now, in Ireland, my mom is post-surgery. My father's looking after her. They're in that sort of vulnerable, high-risk group. But they're loving on one another. They're taking care of one another. This is a moment for our marriage when we're confined. And I want to encourage with this. In your marriage, please just don't look at yourself comparing your marriage with everybody else. Put your marriage on a mission at this time. Put your marriage on a mission. My wife on Sunday morning was talking to her parents back in France, and she was on for quite a while. And I said to her, hey, your parents good? Because I'm thinking, you know what, they're in their 70s. I mean, there's a strict curfew going on in France. They're not able to do anything. I'm thinking they must be getting really bored. And she said, Andrew, they've never been more excited. Let me tell you about them. They're retired school teachers, but when they were school teachers, they used to get all their vacation time, and when it was vacation, they would fly off to the French-speaking world in Africa, and they were like part-time missionaries. They had a heart to raise up children's workers for the gospel all across French-speaking Africa, and they've just kept a heart for this. They've got a website. They still train people. They still travel to Africa, and they do this all the time, and they've just found out that someone in Colombia wants to translate all of their website from France into Spanish, and they're like, yeah! How exciting is that? They're working on this every day. And then this other one blew me away. For a long time now, they've been going to the poorest nation in the world, the Central African Republic. It is like the number one poorest nation in the world. They go there regularly, but they can't go there at the moment. And the pastor has been calling, and he's saying, you know what, at this time, everyone's telling us we should wash our hands. He said, how do you wash your hands when you've got no water, not even water to drink? I was like, oh my goodness. I said, what are your parents doing? She says, well, they're working hard and they're calling everybody they know at this moment in time, and they're trying to raise the funds so that they can drill a well in that village. And I stepped back from that moment and I thought to myself, here's this couple that are in curfew that could be in the house fighting with one another. And do you know all they're doing? They're thinking about the world. They're modeling perseverance in their marriage at this time. And finally, just on this point, a defining moment to model perseverance in your family. You can go, hey, do you know what? We're stuck in the house together. These kids are sending me crazy. Or you can get a different perspective. We got a family in the church. They're pretty incredible. They're called the Lugos. And I was talking to Pete and Lynn just recently, and I said, hey, how's it all going? And they said, it's amazing. They got one daughter that stays at home, and they got two more at college. And they're back from college at this moment in time. And Jack and Claire, and this is what Pete and Lynn, the parents, said, you know what? We're loving this because we will never get this time again in our lives. We never thought that we would have the kids back in the house for this length of a season. So every day we're trying to cook our best. We're trying to make it feel like a party. They still got to work. They still got to do something. But you know what they're doing? They're taking the moment. They're seizing the moment. They are modeling perseverance. It is so important. And on this note, next week, this is what we're talking about. This defining moment. This is the defining moment for next week. We're talking about how it is to have a relationship reboot in our lives. A relationship reboot. We need that in our lives. Do you need that? Well, you know what? Tune in next week. It's Pastor Kurt, and he's going to be talking about it. Here's the third thought. But let me recap here. In strange times, a strong faith embraces uncertainty. It runs into it knowing that God is there. In strange times, a strong faith models perseverance. But I love this one, and you're going to love this, and we're going to mix it up here. In strange times, a strong faith, it lives for eternity. Look what he says here, the writer of the Hebrews. For he was looking forward. Abraham was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. What was he talking about here? He was talking about heaven itself. Talking about heaven. And you're going, how do I see heaven? How do I see eternity at this time? Well, let's rewind 1 week. Let's take you back. And we're going to go back to Easter, because for me, the only way that I can truly see heaven, my friend, is through the lens of the cross. As soon as I see the cross, it's like suddenly eternity and heaven opens up to me, and it opens up to you. And do you know what we're going to do right now? We're going to go out to the crosses. Yeah, follow me. We're going on a journey. We're going to head out of our incredible studio, and we're going to leave behind some of our production staff. Look at these guys and girls. They got their masks on. They're socially distanced, and they're making all of this possible. And if you're not familiar with this spot, I don't know where you're joining us from the world, maybe down in Bayside, Orange County. This is where Video Cafe is held. It's a remarkable space, but we're going this way here. We're heading outside and we're heading to the crosses. Come on with me. So let's do this. How many people remember this? This is your campus, everybody. For some of you watching, you've never even been here. But one day when this craziness is over, you're going to get to come back here and visit this place. Why are we going here? We're going to the cross because the cross helps us see eternity. Growing up in Ireland, we used to have this saying in the church, and it simply was this, that when someone got like something new, maybe a new car, a new house, some new swag, we used to go, hey, that's so cool, that's so good, but just remember, that it's all for the fire. What does it mean by that? It's not being a downer. It simply is this, that one day, even the best of stuff that we have, it's going to perish and we can't take it into eternity. It won't come with us. You see, in this COVID-19 season, we're like locked in time. Everyone's locked in their house. How long have I been here? How long is this going to last? You know what? It's the cross that helps us break out of the limits of time and see that God belongs in eternity, and so do we. It's the cross that is our lens and is our focus for actually the life that we want on earth. Let me tell you about a guy, and his name was Dietrich Bonhoeffer, and last week was the 75th anniversary of his execution by the Nazis during World War II. You see, he came here and he visited America in the early 1930s, and he was blown away by the melting pot. And he went to African American churches and he thought, hey, I want this. I love this. This is what heaven is going to look like. All the nations and all the colors and all the tribes and all the people. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to tell all the people in Germany. But he went back to Germany and Nazism was on the rise. And he said, I will not accept this. This is not of God. And he spoke against it. And this is what he said to Christian brothers and sisters. He said, yeah, as Christians, we can go and help the bleeding that have been crushed under the wheel, but we got to do more than that. We got to put something in the spoke of the wheel itself to stop it. Do you know what he was saying? That we are a people that just don't believe that one day we're going to go to heaven, but actually that heaven is going to come to earth with all its righteousness, its justice, and its equality. It's going to come. Because of that stance, he was executed by the Nazis. But he said these incredible words, and I love them, and I find them so comforting. He says, it's impossible for anyone who's become a Christian, who's personally met Jesus Christ, who's encountered the kingdom of God, from that moment, not to be homesick. They're always going to be homesick. Even though they live in this world, they're going to long for another world. You see, I'm from Ireland, and this is now my home, and I love California, but hear me in this one. I still get homesick some days. And for the Christian, they understand, especially in a season like this of COVID, that we're strangers in this world. Our hope lies beyond time and lies in eternity. And Abraham was a man just like that. He was looking just beyond possessing things in this world. He was living for something beyond this life. And some of you are listening to me and you're going, hey, that Irish guy, he's talking about heaven, but you know what? With my life and my past, heaven seems so far away. Well, let me help you with that. There was 3 American friends during World War II that went to liberate Europe. And sadly, one of them was killed in France. And his 2 friends said, we're going to give him an honorable funeral and burial. And they went to a local church and they said to the priest, can we bury our friend on your church grounds? And the priest with sadness said, I can't, because your friend wasn't a Catholic and he wasn't baptized a Catholic. And they buried him just outside the church wall in a field. Years later, those 2 friends returned to France, to that village and to that church. They looked over the church wall into the field, but couldn't see where their friend was buried. His plot had gone. They ran into the church and the same priest was still there years later. And they said, what did you do with our friend? And the priest said, after you buried him, I was overcome with remorse and grief. And I thought, we can't leave that guy outside the church wall. And the next day, he got his friends together and brick by brick, they moved the wall onto the other side of the guy's grave. They moved the wall so that he could come inside. What is this cross about? It's God saying, I would move heaven to come to earth, and I would move the wall so that you and me would never be outside of God's love. And I don't know who you are. I don't know what you've done. I don't know where you are in the world, but guess what? The love of God reaches right into your life. You're not outside the love of God, and neither am I. Heaven, through Jesus, through the cross, has come into our lives that one day we could spend all of eternity with God. And I'm going to give you an opportunity right now to make that decision to say, Jesus, would you come into my life? Would you, Jesus, allow heaven to come into my life? And Lord, that I would trust you for all eternity. And this is what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to kneel with me at the cross. The biggest journey that you will ever make is an 8-inch journey. Look at this here. It's to the floor. It's in prayer. Oh, I don't know where you're sitting, maybe on a sofa. You don't have to get off your sofa, but if you want to, you can right now. Kneel with me and just repeat this prayer with me. It's a simple prayer that puts your trust in Jesus Christ. Pray these words with me. Dear Lord Jesus, I want to thank you for the cross, that you died for my sins. And Jesus, I confess I'm a sinner. And Lord, I receive your forgiveness. Would you take away my past and give me your future? And Jesus, would you just right now send heaven to earth with your love and your presence into my life? And I trust you now for all eternity. Amen. Well, I believe that you have prayed the most important prayer you'll ever pray, and you've made the most important decision that will impact all of eternity. And if you're maybe on our Bayside app, you can click a little thing there. You see it just up there? It says, I raise my hand. What does that mean? Well, normally in our services, when someone raises, or when someone says that prayer, they simply raise their hand at the end. And you can just click that right now. Or you can text the word next to 56316 here. And this is really, really important. One more thing. You see, the cross, the symbol of all eternity, has stood in history right at the center. Also at the history of the church, the cross is right at the center. And here at this original campus, the cross has quite literally always been in the center.